Hello and welcome back. Have you ever noticed that something inexplicable starts happening around 3 a.m.? Several years ago, my girlfriend and I lived in an old house that had belonged to a priest for many years. At some point, my girlfriend started having nightmares and woke up every night at 3:17 a.m. She lost sleep and didn't know what to do. One night, she finally fell asleep but couldn't wake up for a long time. She was screaming but couldn't wake up. I kept telling her, "Wake up, it's a nightmare, wake up!" But she continued screaming in her sleep. I finally managed to wake her. It took her a while to calm down, but then she told me she had a nightmare about a nasty old woman strangling her and laughing. And she said to her, "You will be mine, I won't leave you." When we contacted the local church, we found out that her case was not unique. Many residents had been tormented in their dreams by this woman, but no one knew exactly who she was in life or how to deal with her. I suggested we move out, but my girlfriend refused. She said she wanted to stay and fight. Every evening before bed, Lena would take her childhood toy, a soft teddy bear, and put it under her head instead of a pillow. She would ask me to hold her hand and not let go. For the first few nights, no one came to her in her dreams, and she continued to sleep on the bear, holding my hand. After about a month, she told me that the old woman came to her again, but this time she didn't torment Lena. She just growled angrily, saying something like, "You're strong." Lena said she knew it was a dream and just kept holding my hand tightly. The old woman left her alone. For about a year, Lena slept with the teddy bear, holding my hand tightly. These events left an indelible mark on our lives. We never found out who the old woman was or why she chose Lena, the unseen visitor. When I first moved into my new apartment, everything seemed perfect. It was spacious, affordable, and had a great view of the city skyline. The neighbors were friendly, and the building had a quiet, peaceful atmosphere. Little did I know that my new home held a dark secret. The first few nights were uneventful, but on the fourth night, I woke up at exactly 3 a.m. My room was pitch black, and the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator. I dismissed it as a coincidence and went back to sleep. But the next night and the night after that, I found myself waking up at the same time, always 3 a.m. I started to feel uneasy, as if I were being watched. One night, as I lay in bed trying to fall back asleep, I heard a faint whispering. It was so soft that I couldn't make out any words, but it sent chills down my spine. I convinced myself it was just the wind or my imagination and tried to ignore it. But the whispering continued every night at 3 a.m., growing louder and more insistent. I began to notice other strange occurrences too. Objects in my apartment would move on their own. I'd find my keys in the refrigerator, or my shoes neatly lined up in the hallway, even though I distinctly remembered leaving them by the door. Desperate for answers, I confided in my neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who had lived in the building for decades. Her eyes widened when I mentioned the 3 a.m. disturbances. She told me about a previous tenant, a young woman named Emily, who had lived in my apartment years ago. Emily had mysteriously disappeared, and her case remained unsolved. Some believed she had been taken by a malevolent spirit. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I set up a camera in my bedroom to record what happened at night. The next morning, I reviewed the footage. At 3 a.m., the whispering began again, and then, to my horror, I saw a shadowy figure standing at the foot of my bed. It was tall and indistinct, its form flickering like a candle flame. I watched in terror as it slowly moved closer, reaching out towards me before vanishing into thin air. I showed the footage to Mrs. Thompson, who urged me to seek help from a local paranormal investigator. Skeptical but desperate, I contacted a team who agreed to investigate. They conducted a séance and attempted to communicate with the spirit. During the séance, the room grew cold, and the candles flickered violently. The lead investigator, a man named James, spoke to the spirit, asking it to reveal itself. Suddenly, the whispering grew louder and a voice clear and chilling filled the room. "She belongs to me." James demanded to know who the spirit was and what it wanted. The voice responded, "Emily, she is mine, and now you are too." The séance ended abruptly as the candles were extinguished, plunging us into darkness. Shaken, James explained that the spirit was a malevolent entity that had latched onto Emily and now sought a new victim. He performed a cleansing ritual, hoping to banish the spirit. The atmosphere in the apartment felt lighter afterward, and for a few nights I slept peacefully. But it didn't last. One night, I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of whispering again. This time, it was louder than ever. The shadowy figure reappeared, standing over me. I couldn't move, paralyzed with fear as it leaned closer and whispered in my ear, "You cannot escape." I moved out the next day, leaving everything behind. Mrs. Thompson later told me that the new tenant experienced the same disturbances. The spirit of Emily's captor, it seemed, was bound to the apartment, forever seeking its next victim at 3 a.m. To this day, I refuse to speak about what happened to me, and I never stay awake past midnight, fearing that the unseen visitor might find me again, no matter where I go. The roommate who wasn't there. I was excited to start my new job in a new city, even though it meant finding a place to live quickly. I ended up in an old but charming apartment with a single room available. The landlord, Mr. Green, was a gruff but seemingly kind old man who assured me that my new roommate, Sam, was quiet and kept to himself. Sam wasn't home when I moved in, so I had the place to myself for the first night. Everything was peaceful until I woke up abruptly at 3 a.m. My bedroom door was slightly ajar, even though I was sure I had closed it before bed. I got up, closed the door firmly, and went back to sleep, brushing it off as a draft. The next few nights I continued to wake up at 3 a.m., each time with my door ajar. I also noticed strange noises, soft shuffling and what sounded like muffled whispers. I chalked it up to the building settling or perhaps the neighbors, though the feeling of unease grew stronger. I finally met Sam about a week after moving in. He was a quiet, pale young man who seemed to avoid eye contact and mostly stayed in his room. Our interactions were brief, and I rarely saw him around the apartment. Despite his odd behavior, I was relieved to finally put a face to the name. One night, I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of scratching on my bedroom door. Heart pounding, I got up to check, but found nothing there. I decided to confront Sam the next day and ask if he had been up late or if he had any pets. But when I knocked on his door, there was no answer. I tried again later in the day with the same result. Feeling increasingly unsettled, I went to Mr. Green to ask about Sam. The old man looked at me with a puzzled expression and said, "There is no Sam. You're the only tenant in that apartment." I felt a chill run down my spine and insisted that I had met and spoken to Sam. Mr. Green shook his head and suggested I might be imagining things due to the stress of the move. Determined to prove I wasn't crazy, I went back to the apartment and decided to investigate Sam's room. The door was unlocked, and inside the room was completely empty. No furniture, no belongings, nothing. It was as if no one had ever lived there. That night, I set up a camera in the hallway facing my bedroom door, determined to capture whatever was causing the disturbances. I woke up at 3 a.m. again to the now familiar sound of scratching. I stayed in bed, heart racing, waiting for morning to check the footage. When I reviewed the recording, my blood ran cold. At exactly 3 a.m., my bedroom door slowly creaked open, and a dark, shadowy figure emerged from Sam's empty room. It moved silently towards my door, stopping to scratch at it before slipping away back into the darkness. Terrified, I went back to Mr. Green with the footage. His face turned ashen, and he finally admitted the truth. Years ago, a young man named Sam did live in that apartment. He was a quiet tenant who kept to himself. One night, he disappeared without a trace. The police searched everywhere but found nothing. Since then, strange things have happened at 3 a.m., but no one has stayed long enough to find out more. I moved out that very day, unable to bear another night in that apartment. I learned later that the building had a history of mysterious disappearances and unexplained phenomena, all centered around 3 a.m. I still have the footage as a grim reminder of my brief stay with a roommate who wasn't there. Even now, I avoid looking at the clock if I wake up in the middle of the night, dreading the possibility of it being 3 a.m. Thank you for joining me on this fascinating journey into the world of paranormal activity. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories and share your own experiences in the comments below. See you in the next episode.